Before we enter the silver forest, allow your breath to slow and your thoughts to soften. Tonight, you'll walk beneath ancient trees where moonlight filters like liquid silver, and the old druids still gather in quiet circles of wisdom. Let the calm of the sacred groves guide you, as the secrets of the moonlit druids unfold in gentle, soothing whispers. The silver forest awakens. There is a forest that exists between the ordinary world and the realm of dreams, a place where moonlight gathers like pools of liquid silver, where ancient trees hold memories older than human language, where magic is not something practiced but simply the natural state of existence. This is the silver forest, and it awakens only when daylight surrenders its hold and the moon begins its nightly ascent. As the sun touches the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the transformation begins. It is subtle at first, so subtle that an untrained observer might miss it entirely, attributing the changes to tricks of fading light or the natural settling of evening. But for those who know, for those who have learned to see with more than ordinary vision, the awakening is unmistakable. The first sign comes in the quality of the air itself. Where moments before it held the warmth and weight of day, now it begins to lighten, to thin, taking on a coolness that speaks not of cold but of clarity. Each breath drawn in this changing air tastes different, crisp and clean, carrying hints of mint and cedar, of moss and moonflower, of substances that have no earthly names because they exist only in places where magic runs as freely as water. As the sky deepens from blue to indigo, the trees begin their transformation. The leaves, which appeared ordinary and unremarkable in daylight, simple green foliage barely distinguishable from any other forest, now reveal their true nature. They begin to shimmer, each leaf catching the first rays of moonlight and holding them, transforming them, releasing them as a gentle luminescence that seems to come from within rather than without. The effect spreads from tree to tree, from leaf to leaf, like a slow wave of awakening consciousness moving through the forest. First one tree glows faintly, then another, then a dozen, then 100, until the entire forest is alive with soft radiance. The light is not harsh or bright, it does not blind or overwhelm. Instead, it illuminates with gentleness, creating a twilight realm where shadows are soft and nothing is entirely hidden, yet mystery remains in every corner. The bark of the trees takes on a silvery sheen, as if each trunk has been brushed with moonlight and the light has somehow adhered to the wood, becoming part of its essential nature. Ancient oaks, their trunks wider than 3 men could encircle with linked arms, stand like pillars of luminous pearl. Slender birches glow with an almost ethereal whiteness, their pale bark seeming more spirit than substance. Even the smaller trees, the understory plants and bushes, participate in the transformation, their leaves and branches acquiring the same gentle radiance. The forest floor undergoes its own metamorphosis. Moss that appeared dull green in daylight now glows with a soft jade luminescence, cushioning every step with light as well as softness. Mushrooms emerge from their hiding places, delicate caps in shades of silver and blue, releasing tiny motes of phosphorescence that drift upward like inverted stars. Ferns unfurl fronds that catch the moonlight and scatter it in patterns that seem almost deliberately beautiful, as if each fern is a piece of living art created by some unseen artist with infinite patience and perfect taste. The sounds of the forest change as dramatically as its appearance. The birdsong of daytime, the cheerful chattering and territorial calls that filled the air from dawn until dusk, gradually fades and falls silent. But the silence is not empty. It is full, pregnant with anticipation, humming with potential. And then, as the last birds settle into sleep, new voices emerge to fill the spaces they have left behind. A soft wind rises, though there was no wind moments before. It moves through the canopy with a sound like distant singing, like voices heard from far away, indistinct but undeniably present. The leaves rustle in response, and their rustling is not random noise but something more structured, more intentional, as if the trees are speaking to one another in a language composed of whispers and sighs. Water makes itself known. Streams and springs that run hidden beneath the earth in daylight now seem to flow more freely, more audibly. The sound of moving water mingles with the wind and the leaves, creating a symphony of natural sounds that is soothing without being monotonous, constant without being overwhelming. Each gurgle and splash seems perfectly placed, perfectly timed, part of a composition that has been perfected over countless centuries. Creatures of the night begin to stir. Not the predatory animals that hunt in darkness, but gentler beings, deer that step through the glowing undergrowth with movements so graceful they seem choreographed, owls that perch on silver branches and observe with eyes that hold ancient wisdom, foxes whose coats seem to absorb and reflect the forest's luminescence until they appear more spirit than flesh. These creatures move through the awakening forest as if they are part of it, extensions of its consciousness rather than separate beings that merely inhabit it. The moon itself appears above the canopy, rising slowly, majestically, its face full and luminous. It is not the harsh white sphere that illuminates ordinary nights, but something softer, more welcoming, a presence rather than merely a celestial body. Its light pours down through the trees' invisible shafts, creating columns of radiance that seem almost solid, as if one could reach out and touch them, feel their texture, measure their weight. Where the moonbeams touch the forest, the transformation intensifies. Leaves glow more brightly. The air seems to thicken with magic until it becomes almost visible, a faint shimmer, a subtle distortion, like heat waves on a summer road but cooler, gentler, more inviting. The very space between the trees seems to pulse with life, with awareness, with an intelligence that is neither human nor animal but something older, something fundamental to the nature of existence itself. In the depths of the forest, where the trees grow most thickly and the canopy forms a ceiling of interwoven branches, pools of shadow remain. But these are not threatening shadows, not darkness that conceals danger. They are peaceful, restful, the kind of shadows that invite contemplation rather than fear. And within these shadows, if one looks carefully, one can see movement, not the movement of animals or people, but something more subtle, more mysterious. Shapes that might be mist, or might be something more substantial. Forms that appear and disappear like thoughts, like memories, like possibilities waiting to become real. The silver forest is fully awake now, conscious and present in ways that defy ordinary understanding. It breathes with the rhythm of the night, pulses with the energy of moonlight, hums with magic that permeates every leaf and root and blade of grass. This is not a place where magic is performed, it is a place where magic simply is, as natural and necessary as air, as fundamental as earth and water. And somewhere within this awakened forest, in clearings hidden from casual sight, in groves protected by layers of enchantment and secrecy, the druids are beginning to gather. They feel the awakening as clearly as they feel their own heartbeats, recognize the call as unmistakably as their own names. From their dwellings scattered throughout and around the forest, simple homes built in harmony with nature, designed to shelter without dominating, to provide comfort without separating inhabitants from the world they serve, the druids emerge. They move through the forest with the ease of those who belong, who are welcomed, who are as much a part of the silver forest as the trees themselves. Their robes, which appeared gray or brown in daylight, now reveal their true colors: silver like moonlight, white like frost, pale blue like the sky at twilight. They do not walk so much as glide, their feet making no sound on the glowing moss, their passage disturbing nothing, leaving no trace beyond a slight intensification of the light wherever they step. The forest recognizes them, acknowledges them. Branches part to allow easier passage. Streams provide stepping stones that were not visible moments before. The very air seems to embrace them, to welcome them home. They are the keepers of this place, the guardians of its secrets, the intermediaries between the mundane world and the realm of deep magic. And tonight, as on every night when the moon is full and the forest awakens completely, they are called to gather, to perform their ancient rituals, to maintain the balance that allows the silver forest to exist in harmony with all that surrounds it. The awakening is complete. The silver forest stands fully present, fully alive, bathed in moonlight and magic, humming with power that is gentle rather than overwhelming, ancient rather than aggressive. It waits now, patient and eternal, for the Druids to arrive at its heart, to speak the words and perform the rituals that have been spoken and performed for time beyond memory. And in the ordinary world beyond the forest's boundaries, people sleep in their beds, unaware that just beyond the edge of their awareness, just past the limits of their ordinary perception, magic is awakening, ancient knowledge is stirring, and the silver forest is beginning another night of mysteries that most will never see, never know, never understand. But some will come. Some will be called. And for those who answer the call, who dare to enter the forest when the moon is full and the trees are glowing, wonders await, visions of beauty, teachings of wisdom, healing that goes deeper than flesh, peace that settles into the very foundation of the soul. The silver forest has awakened, and the night is just beginning. The path of whispering pines. Deep within the silver forest, where the trees grow tallest and the moonlight filters through layers of ancient branches, there exists a path that appears on no map and can be found by no deliberate searching. It reveals itself only to those who are meant to walk it, to those whose spirits resonate with the frequency of the forest's magic, to those who need, consciously or unconsciously, what lies at the path's end. This is the path of whispering pines, and it is older than memory, older than history, perhaps older than the forest itself. Some say it was here first, and the forest grew around it, protecting it, concealing it from those who would misuse it. Others claim the path creates itself anew each night, woven from moonbeams and intention, dissolving with the dawn only to reappear when darkness returns. The truth, like most truths concerning the silver forest, is probably both simpler and more complex than any explanation could capture. The path begins, or perhaps more accurately, reveals itself, at the forest's edge, where cultivated land gives way to wilderness, where the world of human order surrenders to the realm of natural mystery. Here, where a traveler might stand uncertain, wondering whether to enter the darkness beyond the tree line, the first pine appears. It is taller than its neighbors, straighter, its trunk rising like a column of living silver toward the moon above. Its needles glow with particular brightness, creating a beacon that is impossible to miss once the forest has decided to reveal it. The tree stands like a guardian, like a gatekeeper, simultaneously forbidding and inviting, warning away those who should not enter while beckoning forward those who are called. To stand before this first pine is to feel something shift in one's perception. The ordinary world, with its concerns and schedules, its noise and urgency, seems to recede, growing distant and muted, like a voice heard from far away. In its place, a different awareness emerges, an attunement to the rustle of leaves, the movement of air, the quality of light and shadow. Time itself seems to slow, or perhaps it simply becomes less relevant, less insistent, allowing space for other rhythms to assert themselves. The wind rises as if on cue, a soft breeze that carries the scent of pine resin and ancient wood, of moss and moonflower, of things that have no names in human language. And within this wind, for those who have learned to listen with more than ears, there are voices. Not words exactly, not speech in any conventional sense, but communication nonetheless, murmurs and whispers, sighs and songs, fragments of wisdom passed from tree to tree, flowing through the forest like invisible rivers of sound. The first whisper comes from the guardian pine itself, its voice deep and resonant, carrying the weight of centuries. Welcome, seeker. The path opens for you. Walk with reverence, listen with humility, and you will find what you did not know you sought. The voice, if it can be called a voice, does not come through the ears but arrives directly in the mind, in the heart, in that space where intuition lives. It is unmistakable yet indefinable, clear yet mysterious, as real as any spoken word yet completely intangible. To hear it is to understand that communication exists in forms far more subtle than speech, that wisdom can be transmitted through wind and light and the patient breathing of ancient trees. Beyond the guardian pine, the path reveals itself gradually, unfolding step by step rather than presenting itself all at once. It is not paved or marked in any obvious way. There are no signposts, no blazes carved into tree trunks, no worn dirt track created by countless footsteps. Instead, the path is made of light, a corridor of slightly brighter luminescence that winds between the trees, marked by pine needles that glow more intensely than those around them, outlined by mushrooms that release phosphorescent spores into the air, defined by the way moonbeams seem to favor certain spaces over others. To follow this path requires trust. One must surrender the need to see the destination, to know in advance where each step leads, to control and predict and plan. The path of whispering pines demands a different way of moving through the world, a willingness to be guided rather than to guide, to respond rather than to direct, to follow where the light leads without question or doubt. The pines that line the path stand like sentinels, their trunks straight and true, their branches spreading in patterns that seem almost architectural, as if each tree is a carefully designed element in a vast cathedral of living wood. They are spaced at irregular intervals, sometimes close enough that their branches interweave overhead, creating tunnels of green and silver, other times farther apart, allowing moonlight to pool on the forest floor in circles of radiance that seem almost solid enough to step upon. Each pine has its own voice, its own whisper, its own fragment of wisdom to share. As a traveler passes beneath their branches, the whispers come like gifts, like blessings, like secrets shared between old friends who trust each other completely. The moon teaches patience, murmurs one tree, its needles rustling with a sound like distant water. See how it waxes and wanes, how it surrenders fullness to emptiness and then returns to fullness again. There is no loss, only transformation. There is no ending, only continuation in different form. The forest remembers everything, whispers another, its voice carrying a texture of ancient wood and deep roots. Every footstep that has ever touched this path, every prayer that has ever been spoken, every tear that has ever fallen, all of it is held, honored, preserved. You are not the first to walk here, and you will not be the last. You are part of a lineage that stretches backward to the beginning and forward to the end of time. Magic is not power over nature, breathes a third tree, younger than the others but no less wise. It is harmony with nature. It is surrendering the illusion of separation and recognizing that you are the forest and the forest is you, that your breath and our breath are the same breath, that your roots, though you cannot see them, go as deep as ours, connecting you to everything that lives. The whispers continue, tree after tree, each one offering its teaching, its insight, its particular piece of the vast puzzle of understanding that the forest holds. Some whispers are clear and direct, easily grasped by the conscious mind. Others are more subtle, more mysterious, their meanings revealing themselves only later, sometimes days or weeks after the initial hearing, arriving suddenly in moments of stillness as if the words needed time to settle, to germinate, to grow into comprehension. The path winds deeper into the forest, following no straight line but curving and turning according to rhythms that seem natural rather than planned. It skirts around the largest trees, creating space for them, honoring their presence. It follows high ground where possible, avoiding the low places where water gathers, though occasionally it descends to cross a stream on stepping stones that appear exactly where they are needed, their surfaces dry and secure despite the flowing water around them. Animals appear along the path, not threatening or aggressive, but curious, observant, welcoming. A deer steps from the shadows, her coat shimmering with the same luminescence as the trees. She watches the traveler pass with eyes that hold no fear, only a kind of gentle interest, as if she is assessing whether this human understands the sacred nature of the place they are entering. Satisfied by whatever she perceives, she bows her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, of acceptance, then melts back into the forest, becoming shadow and light, present and absent simultaneously. An owl glides overhead, its wings making no sound despite its size, its flight as silent as falling snow. It perches on a branch directly above the path, and its eyes, large and luminous, regard the traveler with an intensity that feels almost uncomfortable, as if the bird is seeing not just the physical form but the spirit within, the intentions hidden in the heart, the truths that one might prefer to keep concealed. But there is no judgment in that gaze, only observation, only a witnessing that is somehow both impersonal and deeply intimate. The path begins to climb, rising gradually toward higher ground. The ascent is gentle, never steep, never demanding more than one is capable of giving. But it is persistent, steady, continuing upward until the sounds of the lower forest, the streams and smaller creatures, the rustling of undergrowth, fade behind, replaced by a different soundscape, the sigh of wind through pine needles, the creak of ancient branches, the whispers that grow somehow clearer, more insistent, as if the trees at this elevation have more to say, or perhaps simply speak more freely. You are close now, the whispers tell the traveler, their voices blending into a chorus that is greater than any single voice. The heart of the forest awaits. The grove of moonlight calls. Those who keep the ancient ways are gathering, and you are invited to witness, to learn, to receive the blessings that this night offers to all who come with open hearts and quiet minds. The moonlight intensifies, growing brighter without becoming harsh, more present without being overwhelming. It pours through the canopy in thick shafts, each beam visible as a distinct column of radiance. Where these beams touch the earth, flowers bloom, night-blooming jasmine and moonflower, their white petals opening to receive the lunar blessing, their fragrances rising like prayers into the cool night air. The path of whispering pines begins to level, the climb complete. The trees change character slightly, they remain pines, but older now, larger, their trunks bearing the scars and wisdom of centuries. Some are so ancient that their bark has become deeply furrowed, creating patterns that seem almost like writing, like runes carved by time itself, telling stories that only the forest can read. And then, ahead, the traveler sees it, a change in the light, a brightening, an opening in the dense canopy. The path leads toward it, arrow straight now, no longer winding but direct, as if all the curves and turnings were preparation for this final approach, this last straight walk toward the destination that has been waiting all along. The whispers of the pines reach a crescendo, their voices rising in a harmony that is almost musical, almost a song. Go forward, they encourage. You have earned this moment through your willingness to listen, your patience to follow, your trust to enter the unknown. Go forward and receive what you have come for, even if you did not know you were coming, even if you did not understand until now that this is what you needed. The traveler continues, drawn by the light ahead, by the whispers behind, by the certainty that whatever lies beyond the trees is exactly where they are meant to be. Each step feels significant, weighted with meaning, as if they are not just walking through physical space but moving through layers of reality, crossing thresholds that divide the ordinary from the extraordinary, the mundane from the sacred. The trees begin to thin. The path widens. The light ahead grows brighter still, and within it, barely visible at first but becoming clearer with each step, shapes can be seen moving, tall forms in pale robes, figures that seem to be made partly of moonlight and partly of substance, beings that exist at the intersection of human and spirit, of temporal and eternal. The path of whispering pines has fulfilled its purpose. It has guided the traveler safely through the depths of the silver forest, has shared its wisdom through the voices of ancient trees, has prepared the spirit for what comes next. And now, with a final whisper that sounds almost like a sigh of satisfaction, like a teacher watching a student reach understanding, the path delivers the traveler to the edge of the clearing, to the threshold of the moonlit grove. Enter, whisper the pines, their voices fading now, their task complete. Enter and be welcome. Enter and be blessed. Enter and remember, always remember, that you are part of this, part of the magic, part of the mystery, part of the eternal dance between light and shadow, between knowing and wondering, between seeking and finding. The clearing lies ahead, bathed in silver light, waiting with ancient patience for the next step to be taken, for the boundary to be crossed, for the sacred space to receive one more soul seeking wisdom, peace, and the healing that comes from recognizing oneself as part of something vast, something beautiful, something infinitely larger than the small self that worries and plans and fears. The path of whispering pines falls silent, its whispers complete. But their echoes remain, carried in the heart of the traveler, seeds of wisdom that will continue to grow long after this night has ended, long after the memory of walking this path has faded into dream. Arrival at the Moonlit Grove. The final step across the threshold is not dramatic or marked by any obvious transition, yet everything changes. One moment, the traveler stands among the trees, surrounded by their ancient presence and whispered wisdom. The next moment, the forest opens, and a space reveals itself, a clearing so perfect in its circular form, so precise in its proportions, that it seems less discovered than created, shaped by intention and magic into a sanctuary that exists outside the normal flow of time and space. This is the Moonlit Grove, the heart of the silver forest, the sacred center around which everything else revolves. To enter it is to step into a realm where the boundary between the physical and the spiritual becomes gossamer thin, where the ordinary laws that govern existence relax their grip, allowing for experiences and perceptions that would be impossible anywhere else. The clearing is larger than one might expect, yet somehow also intimate, spacious enough to hold dozens of people without feeling crowded, yet contained enough that every part of it feels accessible, knowable, safe. Its floor is carpeted with moss so thick and soft that each footfall sinks slightly, cushioned by centuries of growth, by layer upon layer of green velvet that has never known the touch of frost or the harshness of drought. The moss glows with its own gentle luminescence, jade green shot through with threads of silver, creating a living floor that seems to breathe with slow, peaceful rhythm. At the clearing's center, where the moonlight falls most directly, most intensely, the moss has been shaped, or has shaped itself, into gentle undulations, creating natural seats and resting places, raised areas and shallow depressions that seem designed to accommodate whatever purpose the gathering might serve. Here, a slight rise perfect for sitting in meditation. There, a shallow bowl where water from the evening dew has collected, creating a mirror that reflects the moon above with perfect clarity. Everywhere, the contours of the land itself seem to offer invitation, to suggest use without demanding it, to provide possibility without imposing structure. The trees that ring the clearing are the eldest of the forest, pines so ancient that their lowest branches have grown thick as a man's waist, oaks whose trunks bear the scars of lightning strikes from storms that happened before human memory began, birches whose white bark glows so brightly in the moonlight that they seem to be trees made of captured starlight rather than wood and sap. These trees do not merely surround the grove, they embrace it, their branches reaching inward and upward, creating a canopy that filters the moonlight into patterns of breathtaking complexity. The patterns shift and change as the moon moves across the sky, creating what appears to be a slow, silent dance of light and shadow across the moss below. Circles within circles, spirals that seem to spin without moving, geometric shapes that hold meaning in some language older than words. All of these flow and transform across the grove's floor, visible for a moment, then dissolving into new configurations, never repeating, always beautiful, always somehow right. The air within the grove is different from the air beyond its boundaries. It is thicker somehow, more substantial, as if it contains not just the usual mixture of oxygen and nitrogen but also something else, essence, perhaps, or concentrated peace, or the distilled result of centuries of prayer and ritual and deep communion with the sacred. To breathe this air is to feel it doing more than merely sustaining life. It seems to nourish something deeper, some part of the self that exists beyond the physical, feeding the spirit as ordinary air feeds the body. Sound behaves strangely here. The whispers of the pines fade at the grove's edge, as if the trees understand that this space requires a different kind of silence, not the absence of sound, but a quality of quietness that contains all sounds within it, holding them gently without allowing any single noise to dominate. The result is a soundscape of perfect balance, the faint rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, the soft sigh of wind moving through the clearing, all blending into a harmony so subtle that it sits just below the threshold of conscious hearing, creating not music but the feeling that music is possible, that any moment might burst into song. Water is present throughout the grove, though no obvious stream or spring can be seen. Small pools, the moss, each one perfectly circular, their surfaces still and mirror bright. Some are no larger than a cupped hand, others wide enough to reflect the entire moon. They appear to be fed by underground springs or perhaps by the dew itself, condensing from the magical air and gathering in these natural basins. The water is crystalline, pure beyond any ordinary purity, catching and holding the moonlight until each pool becomes a small moon in its own right, a reflection that is somehow more vivid, more present than the original hanging in the sky above. Around the edges of these pools, flowers grow, night-blooming varieties that exist nowhere else in the world. Their petals are translucent, ranging from pure white to the palest blue, and they glow with bioluminescence that pulses in a rhythm matching the breath of anyone who observes them. When the wind touches them, they release fragrances that bypass the nose entirely, arriving directly in the mind as memories of peace, as sensations of comfort, as emotional states of profound well-being. To smell these flowers is to remember every moment of safety one has ever known, every instant of being perfectly loved, every second of absolute contentment. Stones are scattered throughout the grove, not randomly, but in patterns that seem both natural and intentional. Some stand upright like miniature menhirs, their surfaces covered in moss and lichen that glow softly. Others lie flat, creating natural altars or tables, their tops worn smooth by countless years of use. Still others form circles or spirals, marking out spaces within the larger space, creating chambers within the chamber, rooms without walls where different energies concentrate and specific rituals can be performed. The largest of these stones stands at the grove's exact center, directly beneath the point where the moon's light falls most intensely. It is taller than a person, roughly rectangular, its surface smooth except for markings that might be natural patterns in the stone or might be ancient carvings worn nearly invisible by time. This is the moonstone, the anchor point of the grove, the place where earth and sky meet most directly, where the energies of above and below merge and mingle, creating a nexus of power that is palpable to anyone sensitive enough to feel it. To stand beside the moonstone is to experience a sensation of profound connection, not connection to any one thing, but to everything simultaneously. The boundary between self and world seems to thin, become permeable, allowing awareness to expand beyond the confines of skin and bone, reaching out to touch the trees, the moss, the pools of water, the very air itself. It is not a loss of self but an expansion of it, a recognition that the individual identity is just one expression of a much larger consciousness that includes and encompasses all things. Around the grove's perimeter, barely visible in the shadows cast by the trees, small structures can be seen, not buildings exactly, but shelters, niches carved into the earth or formed by the roots of the ancient trees. These are resting places, meditation cells, spaces where the druids can sit in solitude when solitude is needed, or where visitors can withdraw if the intensity of the grove's energy becomes overwhelming. Each one is different, shaped by the particular tree or earth formation that surrounds it, but all share a quality of protected privacy, of being held safely while remaining part of a larger whole. The moonlight itself seems different here, more alive, more conscious than moonlight has any right to be. It does not merely illuminate, it transforms whatever it touches, revealing hidden qualities, drawing out inner radiances, making visible things that usually remain invisible. Under this light, the moss becomes a field of tiny stars, each front glowing with its own unique intensity. The water in the pools becomes liquid silver, holding shapes and patterns that seem almost like writing, like messages encoded in the play of light on water. Even the air becomes visible, shimmering slightly, creating a sense of depth and dimension that makes the grove seem larger from within than it appeared from without. And in this light, standing at various points around the grove's circumference, barely distinguishable from the moonbeams themselves, are the druids. They have been here all along, present but not visible until the right moment, until the traveler's eyes adjusted to the grove's particular quality of light, until awareness expanded enough to perceive them. They stand motionless, robed in garments that appear to be woven from starlight and mist, their faces serene, their presence both powerful and profoundly peaceful. They do not move or speak, not yet. They simply are, existing in perfect stillness, their consciousness merged with the grove itself, their awareness expanded to include everything within the clearing's boundaries. They are the guardians of this place, the keepers of its secrets, the practitioners of its rituals, and they wait with the patience of those who have learned that some things cannot be rushed, that magic unfolds in its own time, that the most profound experiences come not from doing but from allowing. The traveler stands at the grove's edge, taking it all in, the moss and the pools, the stones and the flowers, the moonlight and the shadows, the druids standing silent in their circle of light. Time seems to pause, or perhaps it simply becomes irrelevant, as awareness shifts from the temporal to the eternal, from the busy mind that plans and worries to the deeper consciousness that simply witnesses, that simply is. This is arrival. This is the destination that the path of whispering pines has been leading toward. This is the Moonlit Grove, sacred space held outside the ordinary world, preserved through centuries of dedication and ritual, protected by magic and wisdom and the loving attention of those who understand that some places are not meant for casual visitation but exist as sanctuaries, as temples, as gateways between the seen and unseen realms. The traveler takes a breath, deep, slow, allowing the grove's air to fill not just lungs but spirit, not just body but soul. And in that breath, something shifts, some final barrier falls away, and the understanding comes. This is not just a place one has traveled to, but a place one has been traveling toward all along, perhaps for years, perhaps for lifetimes, drawn by forces older and wiser than conscious intention, called by needs deeper than language can express. The Moonlit Grove welcomes its newest guest. The druids, though still silent, acknowledge the arrival with a subtle shift in their presence, a barely perceptible inclination of their heads, a recognition that the circle is now complete, that all who are meant to be here have gathered, that the night's work can truly begin. The moon reaches its zenith, hanging directly overhead, and its light intensifies, pouring down in a waterfall of radiance that fills the grove to overflowing, washing over moss and stone and water, over druids and trees and the single traveler who has walked the whispering path to arrive at this moment, in this place, ready, whether they know it or not, for whatever teachings, healings, and blessings this sacred night holds in store. The Moonlit Grove pulses with gentle power, breathes with ancient rhythm, waits with infinite patience for the next phase of the gathering to unfold. All is in readiness. All is as it should be. The sacred space holds all within its embrace, offering shelter and transformation, peace and possibility, the chance to touch something eternal in the midst of temporal existence. The arrival is complete. The ceremony is about to begin. The Circle of Lunar Druids. In the profound stillness that follows the traveler's arrival, a subtle shift occurs throughout the grove. The quality of silence changes, not breaking, but deepening, becoming more purposeful, more aware. The druids, who until now have stood motionless at the clearing's edge, begin to move. Their movement is so gradual, so fluid, that at first it seems like an optical illusion, a trick of moonlight and shadow. But slowly, unmistakably, they step forward from their positions among the trees and begin to gather at the grove center. There are 12 of them, though the number seems both precise and somehow flexible, as if there might be more or fewer depending on how one counts, whether one includes the shadows that might be druids or the moonbeams that might have taken human form. They move with a grace that transcends ordinary human movement, their feet making no sound on the moss, their robes flowing around them as if stirred by a breeze that touches nothing else in the grove. Their garments are extraordinary, not woven from any earthly material but seeming to be composed of moonlight itself, solidified just enough to drape and fold, to catch the light and scatter it in patterns that shift with every movement. The color is difficult to name, silver, yes, but also white, and pale blue, and the faintest hint of violet, all of these shades blending and separating depending on how the light strikes the fabric. In some places, the robes appear almost transparent, as if the druids themselves are partly spirit, partly substantial, existing in that liminal space between the physical and the ethereal. Each druid wears a circlet upon their brow, simple bands that might be made of silver or platinum, or might be formed from something else entirely, some metal that exists only in places where magic runs deep. Set into each circlet is a single stone that catches the moonlight and holds it, moonstones with their characteristic blue sheen, opals that flash with inner fire, clear quartz crystals that seem to contain entire galaxies within their depths. These stones are not mere decoration, they pulse gently with their own light, responding to the rhythms of their wearer's breath, their heartbeats, their thoughts. The faces of the druids are serene, composed, bearing expressions of deep peace that comes not from the absence of feeling but from the transcendence of ordinary emotion. Some appear young, their features smooth and unlined, yet their eyes hold the wisdom of centuries. Others show the marks of age, silver hair, weathered skin, the gentle creasing that comes from years of laughter and contemplation, yet they move with the vitality of youth. Time seems to touch them differently than it touches ordinary mortals, leaving its mark not as decay but as refinement, not as deterioration but as distillation of essence. They arrange themselves in a circle around the moonstone, each taking a position that seems predetermined, known without needing to be discussed or negotiated. The spacing between them is perfect, creating a ring that is both protective and inclusive, that encloses the sacred center while remaining open to what might approach from beyond. As they take their places, the grove responds, the moss beneath their feet glows more brightly, the pools of water shimmer with increased luminescence, even the air seems to thicken slightly, becoming more charged with potential. For a long moment, they stand in silence, their eyes closed or gazing upward at the moon, their hands held loosely at their sides or folded gently before them. They are not separate individuals but parts of a whole, components of a single consciousness that has learned to express itself through multiple forms. The boundaries between them seem permeable, as if awareness flows from one to another without obstruction, creating a collective mind that is far greater than the sum of its parts. The eldest among them, or perhaps simply the one chosen to speak first, for hierarchy seems less about age or authority and more about function and natural order, steps slightly forward. She is a woman whose hair flows like liquid silver down her back, whose face bears the serene beauty of one who has looked deeply into life's mysteries and found them not terrible but wonderful. When she raises her hands in a gesture of welcome, the movement is so graceful, so perfectly timed, that it seems choreographed by the universe itself. Her voice, when it comes, is unlike any ordinary voice. It does not shout or project, yet it fills the entire grove with sound that is somehow simultaneously outside and inside, heard with ears and felt with the heart. The words flow like water, like wind, like moonlight made audible. Welcome to the Moonlit Grove, seeker of the ancient ways. You have walked the path that reveals itself only to those who are called. You have listened to the whispers of the pines and found wisdom in their words. You have crossed the threshold with reverence, and so we welcome you into this circle, into this sacred gathering where the veils grow thin and the truths that hide in daylight become visible in the moon's gentle illumination. As she speaks, the other druids begin a gentle swaying, a movement so subtle it is barely perceptible but which creates ripples in the grove's energy, causing the light to pulse in synchronization with their motion. They are not merely standing in the grove, they are part of it, extensions of its consciousness, channels through which its power flows into the world. Another druid steps forward, a man whose beard is woven with what appears to be strands of starlight, whose eyes hold depths that seem to contain entire universes. His voice harmonizes with the first, creating not a conversation but a blending of sounds that is more music than speech. We are the keepers of the silver forest, the guardians of lunar wisdom, the practitioners of magic that flows not from will but from harmony, not from domination but from deep listening. We do not command nature, we participate in it. We do not control the elements, we dance with them. We are druids of the Moonlit Grove, and our power comes from surrender, our strength from gentleness, our wisdom from silence more than speech. A third druid adds her voice, younger in appearance but no less ancient in essence. We gather here each full moon, when the veil between worlds grows gossamer thin, when the silver forest awakens fully, when the magic that usually hides in shadow steps forth into light. We come to maintain the balance, to speak the words that have been spoken since the first moon rose over the first forest, to perform rituals that keep the wild places wild and the sacred spaces sacred. One by one, each druid speaks, adding their voice to the growing chorus, creating a tapestry of sound that weaves through the grove like visible threads of meaning. They speak of seasons and cycles, of the dance between light and darkness, of the importance of honoring both growth and decay, of the wisdom that comes from observing nature rather than trying to control it. The moon teaches us, says one, that fullness and emptiness are equally necessary, that waxing and waning are not opposites but parts of the same eternal rhythm. The trees teach us, says another, that strength comes from deep roots, that flexibility prevents breaking, that giving shelter to others is not weakness but the highest purpose. The water teaches us, a third continues, that the softest substance can wear away the hardest stone, that yielding is often wiser than resisting, that clarity comes from stillness, not from agitation. The moss teaches us, yet another adds, that slow growth can create lasting beauty, that small things accumulated over time become mighty, that the gentlest touch can transform stone into a garden. Their words blend and overlap, creating not confusion but a kind of orchestrated understanding, a message delivered in layers that speak simultaneously to the mind and the heart, to conscious thought and unconscious knowing. The traveler listens, or perhaps more accurately, absorbs, receiving the wisdom not as information to be memorized but as seeds to be planted, truths that will germinate in their own time, growing into understanding through the gentle process of integration rather than the forceful process of study. The circle of druids begins to move, walking slowly clockwise around the moonstone, their steps perfectly synchronized though no visible signal coordinates them. As they walk, they begin to chant, not words in any ordinary language, but sounds that seem to emerge from some place deeper than language, from the realm where meaning exists before it takes the form of speech. The chant is simple, repetitive, hypnotic, creating a sonic landscape that seems to reshape the grove itself, causing the light to pulse in rhythm with the sound, the pools to ripple in synchronization, even the trees at the clearing's edge to sway gently in time. The effect is profoundly calming. The chant does not demand attention but offers it, does not insist on being heard but makes itself available to be received. It flows through the grove like water finding its level, like air filling every space, touching everything without force, changing everything without violence. The traveler feels their own heartbeat begin to synchronize with the rhythm, their own breathing falling into the pattern established by the chant, their own consciousness beginning to merge with the collective awareness of the circle. As the Druids complete their first circuit around the moonstone, they stop, turning inward to face the center. The eldest raises her arms toward the moon, and her voice rises above the chant, clear and strong despite its gentleness. We acknowledge the light that guides us, the moon that illuminates not just the world but the hidden chambers of the heart. We honor the cycles that govern all existence, the turning of seasons, the ebb and flow of tides, the rhythm of breath and heartbeat. We recognize ourselves as small parts of a vast whole, individual expressions of universal consciousness, temporary forms through which eternal patterns flow. The other Druids echo her final words, their voices creating harmonies that seem to reach beyond the grove, beyond the forest, touching something vast and ancient and infinitely patient. The moss beneath their feet glows more intensely, the pools of water begin to shimmer and swirl despite the absence of any breeze, and the moonstone itself seems to pulse with inner light, as if responding to the invocation, acknowledging the recognition it has received. The circle is complete. The Druids are gathered. The space is prepared. And in the profound peace that settles over the grove, in the gentle power that radiates from the circle of lunar wisdom, something shifts. The ceremony has begun in earnest. The teachings are about to unfold. The healing that the grove offers, healing of spirit more than body, of soul more than flesh, becomes available to all who are present, all who are open, all who are willing to receive what this sacred night has been preparing to give since the moment the silver forest first awakened and the path of whispering pines revealed itself to guide the worthy to this place, this moment, this perfect gathering of moonlight and magic and ancient, gentle wisdom. The circle of lunar druids stands in perfect stillness once more, their work begun, their presence a bridge between the ordinary and the extraordinary, their consciousness a channel through which the healing energies of the grove can flow into the world, transforming all who are touched by them, blessing all who are wise enough to receive. Teachings of the Moon. The chant fades into silence, not an abrupt ending, but a gradual dissolution, like morning mist dissipating in sunlight. The Druids remain in their circle, facing inward toward the moonstone, their presence creating a container of concentrated awareness into which the teachings can pour. The moon itself seems to lean closer, as if bending down to listen, to participate, to add its own wisdom to what is about to be shared. The eldest Druid, she who spoke first, moves to stand beside the moonstone, placing her palm flat against its smooth surface. The stone responds immediately, glowing more brightly from within, pulsing with light that matches the rhythm of her heartbeat. When she speaks, her voice carries the weight of countless generations, the accumulated wisdom of every Druid who has ever stood in this grove, every teacher who has ever shared these truths under the light of the full moon. The first teaching, she begins, her words falling into the silence like drops of water into a still pool, creating ripples that spread outward in perfect circles, is the teaching of cycles. The moon shows us this truth more clearly than any other celestial body, more obviously than any earthly phenomenon. Watch how it waxes, growing from the thinnest crescent to the full, luminous circle. Watch how it wanes, surrendering its light degree by degree until it disappears entirely into darkness. And then watch how it returns, how the cycle begins again, eternal and unchanging, reliable as breath, certain as the rising sun. She pauses, allowing the words to settle, to find their places in the hearts and minds of those listening. Around the circle, the other Druids stand in perfect attention, their eyes reflecting moonlight like still pools reflecting the sky. This is the fundamental rhythm of existence, she continues. Growth and decline. Expansion and contraction. Fullness and emptiness. The moon teaches us that neither state is permanent, that both are necessary, that trying to remain always in fullness is as futile as trying to remain always in emptiness. Life flows between these poles, and wisdom lies not in resisting the flow but in surrendering to it, in accepting that what grows will decline, and what declines will grow again. A younger druid steps forward, his movements as fluid as water, his voice blending seamlessly with the elders as if they are two instruments playing the same melody. The second teaching is the teaching of reflection. The moon does not create its own light, it receives the sun's radiance and reflects it back into the darkness. In this way, it shows us the power of receptivity, the strength of being a mirror rather than a source. We live in a world that values creation, production, doing, making. But the moon teaches us that receiving and reflecting can be equally powerful, equally valuable, equally necessary. He gestures toward the pools of water scattered throughout the grove, each one holding a perfect reflection of the moon above. Like these pools, like the moon itself, we can learn to receive the light that comes to us and reflect it outward, sharing it without diminishing it, passing it along without claiming ownership of it. This is the wisdom of the vessel, of the channel, of the servant rather than the master. A third druid, a woman whose silver hair cascades over her shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight, adds her voice to the teaching. Her words seem to emerge not from her throat but from the very air around her, as if the grove itself is speaking through her form. The third teaching is the teaching of balance. The moon governs the tides, pulling the oceans back and forth in endless rhythm, creating the dance between high water and low water that has continued since the seas first formed. But notice, the moon does not pull the water all the way onto the land, drowning the earth. Nor does it pull all the water away, leaving the ocean beds dry. It maintains a balance, a middle way, ensuring that neither extreme overtakes the other. She raises her hands, palms upward, as if weighing invisible objects in each one. So too must we learn to balance the opposing forces within ourselves and within the world. Light and darkness. Action and rest. Speaking and silence. Solitude and community. Neither pole is evil, neither is wholly good. Health comes from honoring both, from moving between them with grace, from understanding that the excluded opposite will always return, that what we push away will circle back to demand recognition. The teachings continue, each druid adding their voice, their insight, their particular understanding of the moon's wisdom. They speak of phases and transitions, of the importance of honoring the dark moon as well as the full, of recognizing that emptiness is not absence but a different kind of presence, a pregnant void from which new growth emerges. The dark moon, says one druid whose eyes seem to contain entire galaxies, is not the moon's death but its rest, its retreat into contemplation before it begins the cycle anew. In our own lives, we need such times, periods of withdrawal, of going inward, of releasing what we have accumulated so that we can return to the world renewed, refreshed, ready to receive and reflect once more. Another speaks of lunar influence on growth and decay, on the cycles of planting and harvesting that farmers have followed since agriculture began. The moon teaches us timing, he says, the importance of working with natural rhythms rather than against them. There is a time to plant seeds, when the moon's energy supports new beginnings. There is a time to harvest, when the moon's fullness concentrates power in the fruit and grain. There is a time to prune and release, when the waning moon helps us let go of what no longer serves. The Druids form a tighter circle now, moving closer to the moonstone, their voices beginning to blend and harmonize, creating not individual teachings but a unified understanding that is greater than any single insight. They speak of the moon's connection to water, not just the tides of the ocean but the waters within the human body, the fluids that comprise more than half of every person's physical form. We are lunar beings, they chant together, their voices creating harmonies that seem to resonate with the very stones beneath the moss. Our bodies respond to the moon's pull just as the oceans do. Our moods wax and wane with its phases. Our dreams grow more vivid when it is full, our intuition sharpens when it is dark. To understand the moon is to understand ourselves, to work with its rhythms is to work with our own deepest nature. The eldest druid raises her arms toward the moon, and as she does, the moonlight seems to intensify, pouring down in a visible column of radiance that encompasses the entire grove. In this enhanced light, the teachings take on a different quality. They become not just words to be heard but experiences to be lived, truths to be felt in the body and the soul rather than merely understood with the mind. The moon teaches patience, she says, her voice carrying across the grove like a benediction. Its changes are slow, measured, proceeding according to a schedule that cannot be rushed or delayed by human will. In our world of instant gratification, of impatience and urgency, the moon reminds us that some things simply take time, that growth cannot be forced, that rushing toward the destination means missing the journey. The moon teaches humility, adds another druid. It does not compete with the sun, does not claim to be brighter or more important. It accepts its role as the lesser light, the nighttime companion, the gentle illuminator of darkness. Yet in accepting this role, it becomes beloved, celebrated, honored in ways the sun, for all its power, is not. There is wisdom in accepting our place, in not striving always to be more than we are, in recognizing that every role in the cosmic dance has value. The moon teaches mystery, says a third. It shows us different faces, crescent and quarter, gibbous and full, yet we know that the moon itself has not changed, only our perspective of it has shifted. So too are there mysteries in our own lives, aspects of reality that remain hidden not because they are absent but because we have not yet moved to the angle from which they become visible. The moon reminds us to remain curious, to accept that we do not and cannot know everything, that mystery is not a problem to be solved but a reality to be honored. The teachings flow like water, like wind, like the very moonlight that illuminates them. Each druid contributes their understanding, their particular insight into the lunar mysteries, until the grove seems filled to overflowing with wisdom, with understanding, with truths that have been tested and proven across millennia of observation and practice. One druid speaks of the moon's influence on women's cycles, on the mysterious connection between lunar phases and the rhythms of fertility and creation. Another discusses the moon's role in navigation, how it has guided travelers across oceans and deserts, providing light in darkness, direction in confusion. Still another explores the moon's presence in dreams, how it seems to open doorways into the unconscious, allowing symbols and insights to emerge from depths that remain hidden during the sun's bright reign. The moon is a teacher, they say in unison, their voices blending into a single voice that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, from the stones and the trees and the very air itself. It is patient, gentle, persistent. It does not force its lessons upon us but offers them freely to anyone willing to look up, to observe, to contemplate. It has been teaching these truths since before humans walked the earth, and it will continue teaching them long after we are gone. We are merely translators, interpreters, those who have learned to read the lunar language and share its meanings with others. The eldest druid places both hands on the moonstone now, and the stone responds by releasing a pulse of light so bright, so pure, that for a moment the entire grove is illuminated as if by daylight, but a daylight filtered through silver, made gentle and kind, stripped of all harshness. In this moment of radiance, the final teaching is delivered, not through words but through direct transmission, truth flowing from the grove into the hearts of all present without the need for language or explanation. It is the understanding that the moon is not merely an object in the sky but a living presence, a consciousness as real as any human consciousness, expressing itself through cycles and phases, teaching through the language of light and shadow, offering guidance to all who have the wisdom to look up and pay attention. As the pulse of light fades, returning the grove to its normal luminescence, the druids step back from the moonstone and resume their circle. They have delivered the teachings as they have been delivered for countless generations before them. They have translated the moon's wisdom into forms that human minds can grasp, human hearts can hold, human lives can integrate. The silence that follows is profound, full, complete. It is not the absence of teaching but the space in which teaching can be absorbed, the pause that allows wisdom to sink from the mind into the soul, from intellectual understanding into embodied knowing. The druids stand in this silence, holding space for integration, for the seeds they have planted to begin their germination in the fertile soil of receptive consciousness. The moon shines down upon them all, druids and travelers, moss and stone, water and trees, blessing them with its gentle light, confirming through its presence that the teachings shared this night are true, are ancient, are valuable beyond measuring. And in the peaceful quiet of the moonlit grove, wisdom settles like dew, nourishing all that it touches, preparing the ground for the healing that is yet to come. Healing beneath the silver canopy. In the profound stillness that follows the teachings, a subtle change ripples through the grove. The quality of the silence shifts, deepens, becoming more purposeful. The druids remain in their circle, but their attention turns inward, their consciousness gathering and focusing, preparing for the sacred work that comes next. This is the heart of their purpose, the reason they gather beneath the full moon month after month, year after year, to channel healing energy, to restore balance, to mend what has been broken in the subtle realms that underlie physical reality. The eldest druid moves to one of the crystalline pools that the grove, kneeling beside it with a grace that seems to defy the limitations of age. She gazes into the water, which has grown perfectly still, its surface like polished silver, reflecting not just the moon above but something deeper, patterns of light and shadow that seem to shift and change independently of any external source, as if the pool is showing visions, revealing truths that exist in dimensions beyond ordinary sight. "Water remembers," she says softly, her voice carrying easily through the silence despite its gentleness. It holds within itself the imprint of everything it has touched, every prayer spoken near it, every tear that has fallen into it, every blessing poured upon it. Tonight, we work with water to cleanse and heal, to wash away what no longer serves, to restore clarity to what has become clouded. She extends her hands over the pool, palms downward, and begins a low humming, a sound that seems to come from deep within her chest, resonating at a frequency that makes the water respond. Ripples appear on the surface, spreading outward in perfect circles, intersecting and creating patterns of extraordinary complexity and beauty. The other druids join the hum, adding their voices to create harmonics that fill the entire grove with sound that is felt as much as heard, vibrations that seem to penetrate not just the air but the very fabric of reality itself. As the humming continues, the pools throughout the grove begin to glow more brightly, their luminescence intensifying until each one becomes a small moon resting on the earth, casting its own gentle light. The water within them starts to move, swirling slowly in spiral patterns, creating vortices that seem to reach down into unfathomable depths despite the shallowness of the pools. These are not ordinary depths but spiritual ones, connections to underground streams of energy that flow beneath the forest, feeding and nourishing all that grows above. The druids begin to move, each one approaching a different pool, kneeling or standing beside the water in positions that seem instinctively chosen. They dip their hands into the pools, and when they lift them, the water clings to their fingers like liquid starlight, dripping slowly back into the pools, each drop creating ripples that spread outward in perfect, expanding circles. We call upon the healing waters, they chant together, their voices blending into a single voice that seems to emanate from the grove itself. Waters that remember purity, that know wholeness, that have flowed since the first rain fell upon the first forest. Come forth and cleanse. Come forth and restore. Come forth and heal what has been wounded, what has been damaged, what has been forgotten. One by one, the druids lift their hands from the pools and touch their own foreheads, their hearts, their bellies, anointing themselves with the consecrated water, preparing themselves to be channels for the healing that wants to flow through them. Then they turn outward, extending their water-blessed hands toward the center of the grove, toward the moonstone, toward any who have come seeking healing. The traveler, standing at the edge of the circle, feels the intention of the druids like a gentle wave washing over them, not intrusive or forceful, but offering, inviting, asking permission rather than demanding acceptance. The healing is available, but it must be chosen, must be welcomed, must be received with open willingness rather than passive acceptance. A druid approaches the traveler, a woman whose eyes hold such compassion that to meet her gaze is to feel seen, truly seen, in ways that are both vulnerable and deeply safe. She carries a small vessel fashioned from what appears to be crystal, filled with water from one of the glowing pools. Without words, she offers it, holding it out with both hands, her expression making clear that this is a gift, not an obligation, something that can be accepted or declined with equal grace. The traveler accepts the vessel, feeling its coolness against their palms, seeing their own reflection wavering in the water's surface. The druid places her hand gently over the traveler's hands, and in that moment, something passes between them, not information or instruction, but a direct transmission of peace, of reassurance, of unconditional acceptance. Then she steps back, returning to her place in the circle, leaving the traveler to choose what to do with the gift they have been given. The water in the vessel seems alive, pulsing with subtle light, emanating a coolness that is refreshing without being cold, a purity that can be felt even before it is tasted. The traveler brings the vessel to their lips and drinks. The water flows over their tongue, down their throat, spreading through their body like liquid moonlight. It tastes of rain and mountain springs, of moss and stone, of things that have never known pollution or corruption. And as it spreads through the body, it carries with it a sensation of cleansing, not physical dirt being washed away, but something deeper, subtler, old griefs beginning to dissolve, ancient worries starting to release, accumulated tensions gradually unwinding. Throughout the grove, the healing work continues in multiple forms simultaneously. Some druids move among the trees, placing their hands on ancient bark, channeling energy into the forest itself, tending to the land that tends to them, maintaining the reciprocal relationship that allows this sacred space to continue existing. Others sit in meditation beside the larger pools, their consciousness diving deep into the water, working in subtle realms where thought and intention can reshape reality, where prayers can become tangible forces for transformation. Two druids approach the moonstone together, standing on opposite sides of it, placing their palms flat against its surface. They begin to chant in a language that predates words, a stream of pure sound that carries meaning directly into the heart without passing through the interpretive filters of the mind. As they chant, the moonstone begins to pulse with increased brightness, its light growing stronger with each syllable, until it casts illumination throughout the entire grove, reaching into every shadow, touching every living thing with its radiance. The light that emanates from the stone is not ordinary light. It carries within it specific frequencies, particular qualities of energy that resonate with different aspects of being. Some frequencies touch the physical body, easing pain, releasing tension, encouraging cells to remember their optimal patterns of function. Other frequencies reach the emotional body, soothing anxieties, calming fears, gently dissolving the knots of unprocessed feeling that lodge themselves in the subtle anatomy like spiritual stones. Still other frequencies penetrate even deeper, touching the soul itself, reminding it of its essential wholeness, its fundamental perfection, its eternal connection to the source from which all things arise. A young druid, barely more than a youth but carrying wisdom far beyond their apparent years, begins to move around the perimeter of the circle, pausing at each of the cardinal directions. At the east, they bow and speak words of gratitude for new beginnings, for dawn's light, for the wisdom that comes with each fresh start. At the south, they honor growth and expansion, the power of full summer, the energy of manifestation. At the west, they acknowledge release and letting go, autumn's wisdom, the necessary deaths that precede all rebirths. At the north, they recognize rest and stillness, winter's deep sleep, the fertile void from which new life emerges. As these blessings are spoken, the grove responds. The moss glows more brightly at each cardinal point, creating pathways of light that connect the four directions, forming a cross of radiance with the moonstone at its center. The pools at each direction begin to resonate with particular colors. The eastern pool shimmers with pale gold, the southern with vibrant green, the western with deep blue, the northern with crystalline white. These colors spread through the water, creating liquid rainbows, visible proof that the healing work is taking effect not just in the spiritual realm but in the physical one as well. The eldest druid returns to the center, standing before the moonstone with her arms raised, her face turned upward toward the moon. Her voice, when it comes, is stronger than before, carrying a note of command that is nonetheless completely lacking in aggression or force. This is not domination but invocation, not control but invitation. By the light of the full moon, by the power of this sacred grove, by the ancient agreements between our order and the spirits of this land, we call forth healing energy. Not to force change, but to support transformation. Not to override natural processes, but to assist them. Not to impose our will, but to align ourselves with the greater will that moves through all things, seeking always toward balance, toward wholeness, toward the fulfillment of each being's highest potential. The other druids echo her final words, toward balance, toward wholeness, toward fulfillment. And as they speak, a wave of energy pulses through the grove, tangible, unmistakable, washing over everything and everyone like a warm tide. Those who are open to receive it feel tensions releasing, burdens lightening, wounds, some so old they have been forgotten, beginning to close and heal. The Druids continue their work, each one attending to their particular task with focused attention and gentle care. Some gather fallen leaves from the grove's floor, leaves that glow with accumulated moonlight, and arrange them in spiral patterns around the pools, creating sacred geometry that channels and focuses the healing energies. Others collect dewdrops from the flowers, storing them in tiny crystal vials, preserving the essence of the grove's blessing to be carried out into the world, to extend the healing beyond this single night. Time seems to stretch, to become elastic, allowing the healing work to unfold at whatever pace it needs. Minutes might be passing, or hours, there is no way to tell, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the work itself, the sacred task of tending to the wounds of the world, of offering repair and restoration to all who are in need, whether they know they are in need or not. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, the intensity of the work begins to ease. The chanting grows softer, the movements slower, the energy more settled. The healing is not complete, healing is never truly complete, as it is a continuous process rather than a final destination, but it has progressed as far as it can in this particular session, in this particular configuration of moon and earth and human intention. The Druids begin to return to their positions around the circle, their faces serene, their movements graceful despite what must be profound tiredness. They have poured themselves out in service, have channeled enormous amounts of energy through their bodies and spirits, have acted as bridges between the human realm and the realm of pure healing potential. Yet they show no sign of depletion. If anything, they appear more luminous than before, as if being a channel for healing energy has healed them as well, as if serving others has somehow served themselves. The pools gradually return to stillness, their waters calming, their glowing fading to the gentle luminescence they held before the healing work began. The moonstone's pulsing light settles back to its steady, constant radiance. Even the moss seems to sigh with satisfaction, as if the grove itself is pleased with the work that has been accomplished, grateful for the attention and intention that has been poured into it. The eldest Druid speaks once more, her voice carrying gentle finality. The healing is offered. What is received is determined not by us but by the readiness of each recipient, by the openness of each heart, by the willingness of each spirit to accept what is being given. We do not force healing upon anyone, for forced healing is not healing at all. We simply make it available, create the conditions in which it can occur, and then step back, trusting that those who need what we offer will take what they need in their own time and their own way. She bows to the moon, and the other Druids follow her gesture, honoring the celestial body that has illuminated their work, that has lent its power to their purpose. The moon seems to bow back, its light intensifying for just a moment, a silent acknowledgement of the sacred partnership that exists between lunar wisdom and earthly practice. The healing work is complete. The grove breathes with renewed vitality. And all who have been present, Druids and travelers, trees and stones, water and moss, have been touched by the gentle power that flows when hearts open, when intentions align, when ancient wisdom is put into practice with skill and love and profound respect for the mysterious processes through which brokenness becomes wholeness, through which suffering transforms into peace. The Lunar Blessing. As the healing work settles into completion, a new quality enters the grove, not tension exactly, but a sense of gathering, of concentration, as if all the energy that has been flowing throughout the night is now being drawn together, focused toward a single purpose. The Druids feel it, straightening slightly where they stand, their faces lifting toward the moon with expressions of reverent anticipation. The air itself seems to thicken, becoming more substantial, more charged with potential. The moon, which has been slowly crossing the sky throughout the ceremony, now reaches its apex, the highest point of its nightly journey, the moment when it hangs directly overhead, perfectly centered above the moonlit grove. This is the hour of culmination, the instant when lunar power reaches its greatest intensity, when the veil between worlds grows thinnest, when blessings spoken have the greatest chance of taking root in reality and bearing fruit. The eldest druid raises her arms toward the moon, and as she does, the other druids mirror her gesture, all 12 of them standing with arms outstretched, palms upward, bodies forming living channels through which celestial energy can flow down into the earth. They stand in perfect stillness, barely breathing, their consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of their individual forms, merging with the grove, with the forest, with the night itself. For a long moment, nothing visible happens. The grove remains as it has been, luminous, peaceful, beautiful in its silver radiance. But those who are sensitive to subtle energies can feel something beginning to build, a pressure in the air like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks, a tension that is not uncomfortable but is definitely present, definitely increasing, definitely moving towards some kind of release. And then the moonlight changes. It is subtle at first, a slight intensification, a barely perceptible increase in brightness. But it continues, growing stronger moment by moment, the light pouring down from the moon in an ever-increasing flood of radiance. The beams become visible, solid-looking columns of luminescence that seem almost tangible, as if one could reach out and touch them, feel their texture, measure their weight. The light falls first upon the moonstone, which responds by blazing with such brilliance that it becomes difficult to look at directly. The stone seems to drink the lunar radiance, absorbing it, storing it, concentrating it until it holds within its ancient crystalline structure more light than should be physically possible. Cracks and fractures that have lain hidden in the stone's depths for countless centuries suddenly become visible, glowing with inner fire, creating patterns that look almost like writing, like runes conveying messages in a language that bypasses conscious understanding and speaks directly to the soul. From the moonstone, the intensified light spreads outward in waves, washing over the druids who stand in their circle, flowing past them to touch everything else in the grove, the moss, the pools, the flowers, the trees at the clearing's edge. Everything it touches becomes more luminous, more present, more real, as if the moonlight is not merely illuminating these things but enhancing them, bringing forth qualities that usually remain dormant, revealing potentials that typically stay hidden. The druids begin to glow. Their robes, already silvery, become incandescent, shining with light that seems to come from within rather than being reflected from without. Their skin takes on a pearlescent quality, and their eyes, when they open them, shine with inner radiance that makes them look less like ordinary humans and more like beings of pure spirit who have temporarily taken physical form. Yet there is nothing frightening or alien about their transformation. If anything, they appear more human, more real, as if the lunar blessing is stripping away everything false and leaving only essence, only truth, only the fundamental beauty that exists at the core of all conscious beings. The eldest druid's voice rises, strong and clear, carrying across the grove and beyond, reaching into the forest, perhaps touching even the ordinary world that lies beyond the silver forest's boundaries. Her words are not in English, nor in any language that could be found in books or learned in schools. They are in the old tongue, the language that druids have spoken since the first humans learned to honor the sacred, the words that carry power not through their meaning but through their sound, through the vibrations they create, through the patterns of energy they set in motion. Yet somehow, despite the unfamiliarity of the language, the meaning comes through, not intellectually, not as translated words, but as direct knowing, as understanding that arrives complete and whole without needing to pass through the usual channels of comprehension. "We call down the blessing of the moon," she chants, and the other druids echo her words in harmony. "Ancient guardian of the night, silver mother of tides and seasons, keeper of mysteries and revealer of hidden truths, we ask that you pour your blessing upon this grove, upon all who gather here, upon the forest that shelters us and the earth that sustains us. Bless us with your light. Bless us with your wisdom. Bless us with your gentle power that waxes and wanes but never truly disappears, that surrenders fullness without losing wholeness, that demonstrates through your eternal cycles that death and rebirth are not opposites but partners in the dance of existence." As these words are spoken, the moonlight intensifies further still, becoming a visible cascade of radiance that pours down from the sky like a waterfall of liquid silver. It falls upon the grove in sheets and streams, in curtains and veils, transforming the space into something that exists halfway between the physical and the ethereal, between the earthly and the celestial. Where the moonlight touches the pools of water, they begin to steam, not with heat, but with some other quality, some spiritual warmth that causes the water to release mist that rises upward in delicate spirals. This mist is luminous, glowing with the same silver-blue light as the moon itself, and as it rises, it creates shapes in the air, fleeting forms that might be angels or spirits or simply patterns of energy given momentary visibility, appearing for an instant and then dissolving back into formlessness. The flowers throughout the grove open wider, their petals spreading to receive the blessing, and as they do, they release fragrances that are somehow visible, colored scents that drift through the air like smoke, like silk scarves floating on invisible currents. The perfumes blend and mingle, creating an olfactory symphony that is at once soothing and energizing, grounding and elevating, anchoring consciousness in the present moment while simultaneously lifting awareness toward higher states of perception. The druids begin to move, slowly, gracefully, walking clockwise around the moonstone in a procession that is more dance than march, more meditation than choreography. As they walk, they continue to chant, their voices rising and falling in waves that match the pulsing of the moonlight, creating a sonic landscape that seems to reshape the grove itself, making the space larger and more intimate simultaneously, expanding boundaries while deepening presence. One by one, as they pass the travelers standing at the circle's edge, each druid reaches out to touch them, a hand on the shoulder, fingers brushing the forehead, a palm pressed briefly over the heart. Each touch carries the lunar blessing, transmitting it directly from druid to recipient, offering the gift without imposing it, making it available while respecting the recipient's freedom to accept or decline according to their own readiness. The touches are warm despite the coolness of the night, gentle despite the power they carry. With each one, the traveler feels something shift inside, old barriers beginning to soften, rigid places starting to yield, defended territories opening to allow something new to enter. It is not comfortable exactly, this opening, this receiving, but neither is it painful. It is simply intense, significant, real in ways that most experiences are not real, carrying a weight of meaning that will take days or weeks or months to fully unpack and understand. The moonlight continues to pour down, and now it begins to coalesce, to take form, becoming something more than mere illumination. It gathers above the moonstone, swirling and condensing, forming a column of radiance that connects earth to sky, that creates a direct link between the grove and the celestial sphere from which the blessing flows. This column pulses with energy that can be felt by everyone present, a rhythmic thrumming that resonates in the chest, in the bones, in the subtle body that interpenetrates and extends beyond the physical form. The eldest druid steps forward and places both hands on the moonstone, pressing her palms flat against its glowing surface. She tilts her head back, closes her eyes, and opens her mouth as if to speak, but no words come out. Instead, light emerges, pure radiance streaming from her throat, pouring out of her like song made visible, like prayer given form. The other druids follow her example, each one releasing their own stream of light, and these individual streams merge and blend, creating a fountain of luminescence that rises from the circle of druids toward the column descending from the moon. Where the rising and descending light meet, something extraordinary happens. They don't collide or conflict, they merge, blend, become one continuous flow of energy that moves both upward and downward simultaneously, creating a circuit, a complete loop that connects heaven and earth, moon and grove, celestial and terrestrial. The circuit thrums with power, pulses with potential, radiates waves of blessing that spread outward in all directions, touching everything, missing nothing, offering renewal and restoration to all that exists within its reach. The moss beneath everyone's feet begins to glow so brightly that it creates a second moon, an earthly moon reflecting the celestial one, below answering above, completion meeting completion in perfect symmetry. The pools of water shine like molten silver, their surfaces rippling with patterns that seem to contain messages, meanings, truths too profound to be captured in words. Even the air itself becomes luminous, filled with motes of light that drift and swirl like snow falling upward, like stars deciding to visit the earth for a brief moment before returning to their stations in the sky. The druids' chant reaches a crescendo, their voices blending into a single sustained note that seems to contain all notes, all music, all sound that has ever been made or ever will be made. The note hangs in the air, vibrating, resonating, creating harmonics that spread through the grove and beyond, touching the forest, reaching perhaps even to the edges of the ordinary world, carrying the blessing outward in waves that diminish in intensity but never entirely fade, that will continue rippling outward long after this night has ended, touching lives and situations in ways that will never be traced back to their source but will nonetheless have real effects, will genuinely contribute to healing and transformation in places near and far. And then, as suddenly as it intensified, the moonlight begins to ease. The column connecting earth and sky thins, becoming more transparent, less substantial. The light pouring from the druids' throats fades, returns to their bodies, settles back into normal patterns of energy flow. The pools stop steaming, their surfaces calming, returning to mirror stillness. The moss dims to its usual gentle luminescence, still beautiful but no longer overwhelming. The blessing has been given. The circuit has been completed. The work that needed to be done has been accomplished. The druids lower their arms, their faces serene with exhaustion and fulfillment mixed together, the particular peace that comes from having served something larger than oneself, from having acted as channels for forces and energies that transcend individual capacity, from having participated successfully in ancient rituals that connect present practitioners to countless generations of ancestors who performed these same acts in this same place under countless previous moons. The eldest druid turns to face the traveler, her eyes shining with tears of joy, her smile radiant with love that is both personal and universal, both specifically directed and all-encompassing. She opens her arms in a gesture that invites embrace but demands nothing, that offers connection while respecting boundaries, that communicates acceptance and blessing without needing any response or reciprocation. "The moon has blessed you," she says simply. "You came seeking, though you may not have known what you sought. You walked the path, listened to the whispers, entered the grove, received the teachings, participated in the healing. And now you have witnessed and received the blessing itself. You are changed, whether you feel it yet or not. Seeds have been planted in your spirit that will grow in their own time, that will bear fruit you cannot yet imagine. Trust the process. Honor what you have experienced. And when you return to the ordinary world, carry with you the memory of this night, the knowing that magic is real, that healing is possible, that blessing is always available to those who open themselves to receive it." She lowers her arms, bows once to the traveler, once to the moon, and then returns to her place in the circle. The other druids follow her example, each one acknowledging the traveler with a gesture of respect and farewell before taking their position around the moonstone once more. The lunar blessing is complete. The ceremony has reached its natural conclusion. And as the moon begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, as the night moves from its zenith toward the approaching dawn, the moonlit grove settles into a peace so profound, so complete, that it seems to contain all the peace that has ever existed, all the stillness that has ever brought rest to weary souls, all the quiet that has ever allowed healing to occur and wisdom to emerge from the silence. Dawn over the silver forest. The hours between the blessing's completion and the first light of dawn pass in a timeless stillness. The druids remain in their circle, but their posture has softened, become more relaxed. Some sit cross-legged on the glowing moss, others lean gently against the moonstone, a few stand with eyes closed in meditation so deep it resembles sleep. They are resting but not sleeping, present but not active, holding the sacred space while allowing themselves to simply be, to exist without purpose beyond existence itself. The traveler finds a place at the grove's edge, settling onto the soft moss with their back against one of the ancient trees that ring the clearing. The bark is warm despite the coolness of the night air, and the tree's slow, patient breathing, for yes, trees do breathe, in their own way, on their own timescale, creates a rhythm that is profoundly soothing. The traveler's eyes grow heavy, and they surrender to the drowsiness, allowing consciousness to drift into that space between waking and sleeping where dreams and reality merge, where the boundaries between self and world become permeable, where healing happens at levels too deep for awareness to follow. Time moves strangely in this in-between space. Minutes might be passing, or hours, or perhaps time has stopped altogether, suspended in the perfect balance of the full moon night. The grove continues its gentle pulsing, the pools maintain their mirror stillness, the flowers keep their vigil of beauty and fragrance. Everything holds, everything waits, everything rests in the profound peace that follows great work completed with love and skill and sacred intention. But gradually, inevitably, change begins. It starts so subtly that at first it seems like imagination, like wishful thinking, like a trick of tired eyes. The darkness at the eastern edge of the forest, darkness that has been absolute, impenetrable, begins to thin ever so slightly. Not lightening exactly, but becoming less dense, less solid, as if the fabric of night is starting to wear thin, allowing hints of something else to show through. The moon, which has been descending toward the western horizon, grows paler, less luminous, as if it knows its reign is ending, as if it is voluntarily surrendering its dominion over the sky. The stars, which have been scattered across the heavens in their countless thousands, begin to fade, the fainter ones disappearing first, then the brighter ones following, winking out one by one like candles being extinguished at the end of a ceremony. The eldest druid, who has been sitting in meditation with her eyes closed, opens them and looks toward the east. A smile touches her lips, gentle, accepting, tinged with the bittersweet quality that comes from witnessing endings that are also beginnings, from knowing that what has been beautiful must give way to make room for something equally beautiful but different in character. Dawn comes, she says softly, and her words carry through the grove like a whisper, like a sigh, like the sound of a page turning in an ancient book. The night releases its hold. The moon yields to the sun. The silver forest prepares to sleep once more, to return to its daylight form, to hide its magic from ordinary eyes until the next full moon calls it forth again. The other druids stir, opening their eyes if they were closed, straightening from their positions of rest, turning their faces toward the east where the first genuine light is now beginning to appear. It is not yet sunrise, the sun itself remains hidden below the horizon, but its approach is unmistakable. The sky begins to shift from black to the deepest blue, from midnight to pre-dawn, from the color of profound rest to the color of gentle awakening. The luminescence that has filled the grove throughout the night begins to fade. The moss dims, returning to what appears to be ordinary green, though those who know to look closely can still see traces of silver threading through it, evidence of the magic it has witnessed, proof that it has been transformed by what has occurred upon it. The pools of water lose their glow, becoming simple pools once more, though their surfaces remain perfectly still, perfectly clear, holding within them memories of the visions they have shown, the healings they have facilitated, the blessings they have channeled. The flowers begin to close their petals, preparing for the sleep that daylight brings to night-blooming varieties. They fold in on themselves gracefully, conserving their fragrances, withdrawing their luminescence, becoming dormant but not dead, resting but not absent, waiting for the next night when they will open again and offer their beauty once more to the darkness and to those who know how to appreciate it. The moonstone's radiance fades gradually, its inner light dimming until it appears to be nothing more than an ancient standing stone, weather-worn and moss-covered, unremarkable to casual observation. But those who touched it during the ceremony, who felt its power, who received its blessings, will always see it differently. They will always know what lies dormant within it, what potentials it holds, what connections it maintains to forces and energies that transcend ordinary understanding. The druids begin to move, rising from their positions, stretching gently, beginning the process of returning fully to their individual forms after hours of merged consciousness, of collective awareness, of being parts of a whole rather than separate entities. They move slowly, carefully, honoring the transition, allowing themselves time to re-inhabit their singular identities without losing the sense of connection they have cultivated throughout the night. One by one, they approach the traveler, who has also risen and stands now at the edge of the grove, preparing to depart. Each druid offers a farewell, some with words, others with gestures, still others with simply a meeting of eyes that communicates more than language could convey. They embrace the traveler gently, press small gifts into their hands, a crystal from the pools, a flower petal preserved in some way that prevents its decay, a small pouch of moss that glows faintly even in the growing light, tokens to carry back into the ordinary world, reminders of what has been experienced, keys that might help open doors to future returns to this sacred space. The eldest druid is the last to approach. She takes both of the traveler's hands in hers, holding them firmly but gently, and looks directly into their eyes with a gaze that seems to see not just the surface but the depths, not just the present but the past and future as well. "You will remember this night," she says, her voice carrying certainty that admits no doubt. Perhaps not every detail, perhaps not with perfect clarity, for experiences of this nature often blur in memory like dreams upon waking. But you will remember the essence, the feeling, the truth at the heart of what you have witnessed and received. And that remembering will change you, will guide you, will open pathways that were previously closed, will awaken possibilities that were previously dormant. She releases one of the traveler's hands and reaches up to touch their forehead, the same spot where she anointed them with blessed water during the healing ceremony. Her finger traces a symbol there, invisible but nonetheless real, a mark that exists in the subtle realms, a blessing that will remain long after the physical sensation of her touch has faded. "Walk in peace," she says. "Walk in wisdom. Walk in harmony with the rhythms you have learned tonight, the cycles of waxing and waning, the balance of light and shadow, the acceptance of change as the fundamental nature of existence. And know that you are always welcome to return, when the moon is full and the forest awakens, when the path reveals itself and the grove calls your name. You are part of this now, part of our circle, part of the lineage that stretches backward to the beginning and forward to the end of time. She steps back, bows deeply, and then turns and walks toward the center of the grove where the other druids are gathering for their own departure. The traveler watches as they form their circle one final time, as they join hands and bow their heads in a closing meditation, as they stand together in the growing light, their forms becoming less distinct, more transparent, as if they are fading, dissolving, becoming one with the mist that is beginning to rise from the pools. And then, in a moment that defies explanation, they are gone. Not walking away, not departing through any visible means, but simply absent, no longer present in physical form, having returned to wherever it is they go when the ceremony ends and the ordinary world reclaims its dominion. The grove stands empty, or appears to stand empty, though the traveler knows that emptiness is an illusion, that the druid's presence remains in some form, that they are always here even when they cannot be seen, guardians who never truly leave their post even when they are not visible. The light continues to grow. The sky shifts from deep blue to lighter blue, from pre-dawn to the edge of sunrise. The first birds of morning begin to call, not the night birds whose voices filled the darkness, but day birds whose songs are brighter, more cheerful, less mysterious. They sing of ordinary things, of territory and mating and the simple joy of being alive to greet another dawn, and their songs are beautiful in their own way, though different from the night's deeper music. The trees at the forest's edge begin to lose their silver glow, their bark returning to ordinary brown and gray, their leaves becoming simple green once more. The transformation is not sudden or dramatic, it is gradual, gentle, allowing the forest to release its magical nature slowly, to surrender its supernatural qualities without trauma or shock. The silver forest is going to sleep, returning to its daytime appearance, hiding its true nature behind the mask of ordinariness that allows it to remain undiscovered, undesecrated, safe from those who would exploit or destroy what they do not understand. The traveler turns and begins to walk back toward the forest's edge, following the path that had brought them here, or what appears to be the path, for in the growing light it looks different, less magical, more mundane. The whispering pines stand silent now, their voices stilled, their teachings complete. They are just trees again, magnificent in their own right but no longer obviously extraordinary, no longer glowing with inner light or speaking in voices that bypass ears to address the heart directly. As the traveler walks, they notice changes in themselves as well. The heightened awareness that characterized the night is fading, being replaced by ordinary consciousness, by the everyday mind that thinks and plans and worries about mundane concerns. Yet something remains, a sense of having been touched by something profound, of having participated in something that transcends ordinary experience, of carrying within themselves seeds of understanding that will continue to grow long after the memory of this night has faded to a dreamlike blur. The forest lightens around them. Shadows that were deep and mysterious throughout the night become simple shade cast by ordinary trees. Undergrowth that glowed with bioluminescence becomes common ferns and bushes, beautiful but not supernatural. The streams that sang with magical voices become just water flowing over rocks, pleasant to hear but no longer carrying whispered wisdom in their babbling. By the time the traveler reaches the forest's edge, the sun is rising in earnest. Its first rays pierce through the canopy, falling in golden shafts that are warm where moonlight was cool, bright where lunar radiance was gentle, assertive where silver glow was subtle. The sun claims the world for daylight, and the magic retreats before it, not destroyed, not defeated, but simply withdrawing, going dormant, waiting for the next time darkness falls and conditions are right for its return. The traveler pauses at the boundary between forest and field, between the wild place and the cultivated world, between the realm of magic and the realm of ordinary life. They turn to look back, to take one final look at the silver forest in this liminal moment when it is no longer fully magical but not yet entirely mundane, when traces of its nighttime glory still linger like morning mist that has not yet been burned away by the sun's heat. For just a moment, they see it, a flicker of silver light deep in the forest, a flash of luminescence that might be a last glimmer of the grove's blessing or might be simply a trick of light and shadow. They cannot be sure, and perhaps that uncertainty is itself a gift, a reminder that some things cannot and should not be pinned down with absolute certainty, that mystery is not a problem to be solved but a reality to be honored. The traveler takes a deep breath of morning air, cool, clean, carrying the sense of dew and grass and earth warming in the sun. They feel different, though they would be hard-pressed to say exactly how. Lighter perhaps, more at peace, carrying less burden than they brought with them into the forest. The healing has taken effect, the teachings have been received, the blessing has been given and accepted. What changes will result from this night's experiences remain to be seen, will unfold in their own time, will reveal themselves gradually as days turn to weeks and weeks turn to months. With a final look at the forest, a silent word of gratitude spoken in the heart to the druids who welcomed them, to the moon that blessed them, to the grove that held space for their transformation, the traveler turns and begins walking across the field toward the familiar world, toward home, toward the life that waits for them with all its ordinary challenges and joys. Behind them, the silver forest settles completely into its daytime form. The last traces of luminescence fade. The final whispers fall silent. The magic withdraws fully into dormancy, hiding so completely that anyone walking through the forest in daylight would find it impossible to believe that anything extraordinary ever happens here, that the trees ever glow, that druids ever gather, that blessings flow and healings occur beneath the light of a full moon. But those who know, know. Those who have walked the path of whispering pines carry that knowledge always. Those who have received the lunar blessing bear its mark in subtle realms where such marks matter more than anything visible to ordinary eyes. And when the next full moon rises and the silver forest awakens once more, they will remember. They will feel the call. And if they are wise, if they are open, if they are willing, they will return to walk the path again, to enter the grove again, to receive once more what the druids of the Moonlit Groves have been offering since time immemorial, wisdom that heals, peace that transforms, blessing that changes everything while appearing to change nothing at all. The sun climbs higher. The day begins in earnest. And somewhere in the depths of the now ordinary forest, the Moonlit Grove rests, holds its peace, waits with infinite patience for darkness to fall once more, for the moon to rise again, for the next gathering of seekers who will walk the whispering path and find, in a clearing bathed in silver light, the healing and wisdom and blessing they did not know they needed but which their souls have been seeking all along. May you rest now in the peace of this ending, which is also a beginning. May the blessings of the Moonlit Grove settle over you like gentle dew. May your dreams be filled with silver light and whispering wisdom. May you wake refreshed, renewed, carrying within you the seeds of transformation that were planted this night. Sleep now, in the knowledge that magic is real, that healing is possible, that somewhere, always, druids gather beneath the full moon to tend the sacred, to maintain the balance, to offer blessing to all who seek it with open hearts. Sleep. Dream. Rest. The forest watches over you. the moon blesses you. And dawn will come in its own time, gentle and golden, carrying with it the promise of a new day, a fresh beginning, another chance to walk in wisdom and peace. All is well. All is complete. All is exactly as it should be.